All right, folks, welcome in. This is Yankees Unloaded. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Gary Sheffield Jr. And we're here to talk about the Yankees and what else is new. Because, man, Gary, we've been texting about it. It feels like they've been close, quote unquote, close on Bellinger for like a week now.
Yeah.
So there's that. But we're also going to get into it with a beat writer. And we're bringing on Randy Miller, Yankees beat writer from NJ.com, in about 15 or so minutes. So looking forward to having him on, giving us hopefully some intel, because there's just not a lot out there. I don't know if it's the calm before the storm or we're about to wait like 7 or 8 weeks before something happens. Hopefully not. But Gary, what are your thoughts on everything that's transpired?
It kind of goes to show you'd like to believe that there would be some type of window where things can happen. And obviously, like Jack Curry spoke today, he was saying that the Yankees hold Cody Bellinger in high regard. It's like, well, yeah, all right. Like all good players, the Yankees, I mean, it's long been reported that the Yankees are after this player. And at this point, we have no idea what's happening. We don't know if the Yankees are just going to say, you know what, forget about it. All these other backup options, Santander, right, Yandy Diaz, we're just going to scrap all that and then just say, give us the money for Cody Bellinger. I believe he's owed $53 million, roughly that amount of money. And of course, the player that we whiffed on in Kyle Tucker, that was a player that we probably don't want the Cubs to have funds for this offseason. So taking that $53 million is not going to help that pursuit. So it's an interesting position that the Yankees find themselves in. And obviously, our conversation with Randy Miller, we're going to find out how close that is right now.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because, right now it is definitely quiet. Very quiet, kind of weird. But want to point out that there was a hot stove with Jack Curry, who really is going to tell you how it is. Obviously, he's part of the Yankees in a sense, so he's not going to give anything away that they don't want him to give away. But he's going to give us enough where, because keep in mind, it's also PR. And the Yankees want us to be excited or at least knowledgeable about a potential New York Yankee player. And he did not mention Alex Bregman. He did not mention Anthony Santander. He did not mention Pete Alonso.
What's all that mean, Jake? Because it is interesting because Jack Curry seems to at least be within the circle of conversation of what's said.
Yeah.
Right. And when a person like Jack Curry comes out, you don't hear those names. And we saw those names all over Twitter, but then you go to the Yankees hot stove and those names don't come up. It leads you to believe that those names are being planted. And that's where you take over, Jake. What do you think?
Yeah, so I do believe they're being planted to a degree. I think there are some things, obviously, that Jack knows that like he can't say, right? I think this hot stove, the entire point of it was, first off, obviously you can sell some ad revenue, right? With the commercials and such, but it's going to make them money, but also it's PR. So they're able to talk about Loaizaga. They're able to talk about their brand new pitcher, Devin Williams, and get people excited about it while also mentioning some things that are out there. Like for instance, they mentioned Christian Walker and they mentioned what we've pretty much seen. So what it tells me, one thing we know for sure is that Christian Walker is well liked by the Yankees, but I thought was really interesting because it felt like, and I have in my notes here because I took notes from, of course, the hot stove. Curry said there's a lot of options out there. It's a matter of who is going to blink first. All right, reading the tea leaves based on what I watched and saw, I would say that the Yankees right now are more in on trading for somebody than signing. Because I think in a nutshell, Gary, the market right now is too rich for their blood. And I understand how people are going to, feel about hearing that. But I think it's more like this. It's what I've been telling you. This is not a great market. There's not another guy anywhere near Juan Soto's level. There's definitely not another guy anywhere near Kyle Tucker's level. So that's the thing, is that now that Tucker's off the board and Juan Soto's off the board, Max Fried, and it sounds like Corbin Burns may or may not go to the Bay. Well, there's really not a lot now, is there? I mean, really, the big next domino to fall is Roki Sasaki, if I'm being honest with you. And then I think we might start to see some movement. But we were hearing, 3 years, $63 million for Christian Walker. And now it sounds like he's trying to get a 5 to 6 year deal. So that's the problem as of right now. I just don't think the Yankees feel like any of these guys are worth it. It's not that they can't pay that price. It's like, why are you paying that price on a guy who's clearly going to not age very well into that deal?
Yeah, I guess the interesting part is you said earlier about who's going to blink first. I guess who between the Cubs and Yankees has to blink first. And from what I've been told, I was told this in 2024, the Yankees are in win now mode. They have to win. Obviously, we got really close. The World Series was atrocious. But other than that, we made it to our first World Series in 15 years. So that was considered a good thing. But the Yankees still didn't accomplish that goal. So as far as I'm concerned, you come into the 2025 offseason, you lose Juan Soto. Brian Cashman has made some decently smart moves at this point, and I think a lot of moves people agree with. Team hasn't really gotten older, and you look at the roster and you say, okay, we don't have answers at first base. They told us Caleb Durbin was going to be the second baseman of the future. Odds are, I'd bet money, according to Jack Curry, that he's going to be the starting second baseman. That player was traded. And now we're sitting here in conversation with, okay, what are we doing with Christian Walker? What are we doing with Cody Bellinger? And we're haggling over money. The question is, if we don't get the players, what does this team look like? And that's what I'm afraid of as of now, is that we don't have any assurance that Brian Cashman's going to pull the trigger on the correct move. It seems like right now he's like, well, I'm not going to overpay for anybody. It's like, okay, that's a good thing. But if you don't overpay for one guy and you miss out on another, and then one other guy tells you, I don't want to play here, you might look up and be unhappy with what's at second base or even first base in 2025. So that's what worries me. That's part of what I'm going to ask Randy. It's going to be interesting because it seems like saying no to the overpay is a good thing. But if you look up and you said no to overpays and there's nobody else to pay, you're out of talent. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that's where I think they're going in a different direction. And, we actually had this conversation at the beginning of the season when I said, this is stupid. You have free agency where you can sign these guys and not give up any prospects, but it's really not. I've learned, as I've done this show with you, I've learned a lot about this, and it's really not stupid. It's, if anything, it kind of shows the issue with free agency in Major League Baseball, and that's the fact that these qualifying offers make your draft picks null and void for the most part. So I think a lot of teams are balking at the idea of doing that. It's not like the NFL where, you lose, say, Tom Brady, and the Patriots got a third-round compensatory pick on top of all the picks they have. It doesn't mean that Tampa Bay loses a third-round pick, but in baseball, you could lose a first-round pick. And so, there are teams like the Orioles, whether we agree with the approach or not, the Orioles are sitting there like, yeah, I'm not going to give up a first-round pick when this is how we've built our team. So I do feel like there is an issue there that is causing it. But in addition to that, you have to also understand everybody got older in your farm system by a year. So now these guys are becoming it's more obvious when a certain player, for instance, looks like he's not going to make it to the show or he's not a part of your long-term plans. And so during the winter, you're able to kind of offload these guys that, maybe, the casual fan isn't really following and will complain because it just looks like you're sending away prospects. But if the prospects are blocked, then you're not sending away prospects that matter, right? And so I think that's the thing there. Yeah, that's the thing where, like, I feel like you can turn those and you can go out and get somebody like a Nathaniel Lau, who has been mentioned by people, and, Cody Bellinger and Nico Horner and these guys that are really good players that are established in the league. And you're doing it because, well, prospects are overrated to a degree, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, and Ed W., not a super chat, but a regular chat, says Lauren Shahadi reported on MLB that money was the holdup for Bellinger. Yeah, money is a huge snag. Because you have to remember, guys, if we did trade for Cody Bellinger and we didn't ask Chicago to take on any of that money, it is equivalent to us signing a 2-year, roughly $50+ million deal. I mean, you're talking about $25+ million. That's yes, we're the New York Yankees, and you'd like to believe, well, it's not our money. Go ahead and spend it if it's a player you really want. And I agree with that to some degree. But then also we've heard our owner say that our payroll isn't exactly sustainable. Well, based on what you're saying, bringing in $25 million will matter. So I'm trying to figure out, do the Yankees have an unlimited supply of money, or are they on a tight budget? And based on what we saw last year, I thought the Yankees spent over $300 million, but unfortunately the roster didn't exactly have the depth you would like. Some of that has to do with our lack of development in our system, and others it's lack of aggressiveness at the deadline. We get Jazz Chisholm. We didn't really do much else after that. So as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people are going to say, well, I don't really want to give Christian Walker a 5th year. That doesn't really make a ton of sense. Well, you end up in a situation where if you don't want to go that 4th or 5th year, that's understandable. But you also, Jake, you don't get that 1st year. You don't get year 2 Christian Walker, who could really be a productive player for the Yankees and help them win now. Otherwise, you're saying no to Christian Walker. You're saying no to Bellinger in that $53 million, right? And then you look at first base, it looks like Ben Rice, and then you're essentially rolling the dice that he's developing further to the point of contribution. If not, that's a wasted year of Aaron Judge's prime. So very tough job does Brian Cashman have this offseason. It's not an easy spot at all, but he has to find answers. It is his job.
Yeah, and Ronnie's hoping he doesn't fumble this offseason. Shout out to Ronnie, member for 3 months. Not getting Tucker was a huge miss. It was. Yeah. Regardless of how you want to look at it, well, they could get him next year or whatever, this was a miss. And, you know, I understand some people will disagree with trading Luis Gil away, but the way I saw it is that I like Gil just as much as anybody. And the beginning of this show, every single episode at the beginning, we actually agreed with going with Clark Schmidt and Luis Gil over signing anybody in free agency.
That's correct,
it or not. So we trusted in him. We trusted in the kids. And look, Gil's looked really good. But I'll tell you right now, Gil looks like he could be Severino. He has some injury concerns that could, you know, rear its ugly head again. So that to act like that's not happening, it would be ignorant. And in addition to that, he may never be able to pitch 200 innings in a year. So he can't be your ace if that's the case. But I felt like, you know, trading him when the value is never going to be higher made a lot of sense. Now it's like, if he has a bad year next year, you're going to wish you made this trade.
Yeah. To be fair, again, with general managers, is that we get to sit here in hindsight as podcasters and we say, well, you should have made this trade. And then it ends up working out, right, in Cashman's favor. And then we don't have to stand by it, right? Yeah, maybe someone might screenshot you or make a clip of your podcast, but this is their jobs. This is their livelihood. And these are tough calls, right? Because a lot of people say, I'd really love to have Michael King right now on this roster. And I say, yeah, touche. Michael King's a very good player. Obviously, you see what he's doing in San Diego as a starter. But also, if we didn't get rid of that value and technically, I guess, lose the trade, right, long term, yeah, we don't have Juan Soto and we're probably not in a World Series. So, and by the way, Ronnie with a super chat says, P.S. keep up the good work, fellas. Ronnie, we really appreciate the 20. Thank you. Ronnie. And we also have another super chat says Yankee solution, Bellinger, Lau, Horner. Yeah. As of now, hesitate to call him Big Sexy. As of this moment, you have to just take a step back and say Bellinger, Horner, based on what we just lost, makes a lot of sense in terms of athleticism, in terms of defense, in terms of getting better fundamentally. It is what it is, Jake. The Yankees are very poor fundamentally, and those players that you see right there written down from Big Sexy, yeah, that is a solution where the guys are going to do their job. They're going to be thinking the game of baseball. You're not going to have to ask that trio right there. You're not going to have to ask them to play hard or to play smart. So I know people always want to look at a lot of the names that you just want to see at the, let me look at the back of his baseball card and he's going to hit 330 and hit 40 bombs. But sometimes you need players that think the game as well. And that's part of what we need this offseason. So Brian Cashman has a tough job just from a sense of it's not just the big names he needs to acquire. He needs to acquire players that fit. and we're going to find that out.
Gary, we have the colors of the rainbow in this chat right now.
We sure do.
Ronnie with the massive hundo. We appreciate you,
Ronnie,
man.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
OG supporter. Yeah, it's red, yellow, blue, green, orange. Like, yeah, we got the colors of the rainbow in here.
That's our first red. I've never seen red. I was actually wondering. I thought something wrong happened. Yeah.
Yeah, you did something wrong. It means you got canceled when you see the red.
No, I actually thought we were out of storage. I actually thought that was the issue. So to be quite honest with you, yeah, that's Ronnie. Again, thank you so much. Like I said before, we're going to kind of sidetrack here. But like we said before, guys, we are well aware of who's supported this show from the very beginning. Ronnie, Jeff J, right? We've seen some of these names, honestly, within our first 100 viewers of this show. Basically, when Jake and I were talking to ourselves about Yankees baseball. Yeah. And at that point, I don't know. We're going down the stretch where Jake and I have actually talked about this. We need to figure out some way where we distinguish who's been here from the very beginning. So we're going to figure that out.
Yeah, no, definitely. Ronnie, really appreciate it. You've been an OG supporter. Remember our first episode, Gary and I were like, yeah, 150 views would be nice. And we got 1.9K. And that's when we kind of had an idea. We didn't get that for a while, but we had an idea that this could end up being something. So we're going to get to Jeff J's super chat after, but we want to bring on Randy Miller because we really appreciate his time. We know how busy he is. So let's do that. Without further ado, here is Randy Miller. How's it going?
Hi, guys. How are you doing tonight?
Doing great,
Good.
Randy.
How are you?
Everything's fine. I'm here between Philly and New York. It's a little chilly out. I'd rather be in the weather, but that's all right.
He'd rather be where I'm at in Arizona right now. The weather's beautiful.
I'm in Pittsburgh originally, so I'm used to the cold weather.
Fair enough.
I get it. I'm in upstate New York, and I'm over the cold weather, but we really appreciate you taking the time. We know how busy you are and how busy this time of year is. I want to start by asking you something just because, it's a player Gary and I have been talking about. Not that he's out there, but I just wanted to see if you heard anything potentially about a player in Ketel Marte and if, maybe Arizona, who's mentioned, listening to some of those top players. Could a Ketel Marte be available for New York Yankees?
I know the Yankees like him. They've tried to get him in past seasons. He had that very team-friendly contract. I have not heard anything about him this year. I think right now that the Yankees have added a big bullpen guy and another big starter, that they're focusing on first base, third base, left field right now.
I like
hearing that. To hear. No, I have to get straight to the story. I saw it on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, where I think you were commenting about Juan Soto changing his phone number and that whole storyline. Because obviously, as you know, my dad was a client of Scott Boras, and you're just in a situation where you say, okay, it almost feels as fans, he's willing to do anything in order to get the end result, which is top dollar. And rightfully so, that's his job. But can you extend on your story about how that wasn't true, that number changed?
Well, first off, I have Soto's number. Second of all, I have I know I have a close friend that spoke to him, and I've seen text before and after the signing, and he definitely did not change the phone number. I'm 100% positive on that. And to me, this is just Boris's way of trying to steer away criticism from Soto from Yankee fans. And look, he went for the money. I remember being in Nashville at the winter meetings a year ago, and the day the Yankees traded for him, somebody came up to me and says, the Mets want this guy, and they're going to get this guy. And I thought all along they were going to get him. I heard during the season somebody had told me that the Blue Jays were going to make a astronomical offer. That I wrote, and I thought, wow, if they blow the field away, maybe he'll go to Toronto, because this guy is going to the highest bidder. If the Pirates would have paid this guy a penny more, he's going there. That's the type of guy I think he is. Look, I greatly admire this guy's hitting ability. He's one of the top hitters I've ever seen. I've covered baseball since 1996. He's not one of the best players I've ever seen. Judge is so much better. The guy's not a leader. It was interesting this year to see the guy in the clubhouse, and he was almost like a loner to me. I know in the batting cage he spoke to Judge, and they had a great amount of respect for each other. But I quizzed Soto after Game 5 of the World Series, kept asking him questions. If the money is what you want, are you going to come back to the Yankees? He would not answer. Just would not say yes. And I knew right then this guy confirmed to me that he was going to the highest bidder. When I was in San Diego this year, when the Yankees were out there, oh my God, the stories I heard, negative stories on Soto. I've had a lot of people tell me it's going to be interesting to see what happens when he's with the Mets. He's been on good behavior with the Yankees. I like Soto personally. The guy really, really loves baseball. He's not a good defensive outfielder. That Gold Glove finalist thing was a joke. I covered the Phillies for 17 years. Bobby Abreu got one year, and I remember people laughing. This was worse. I know the Yankees didn't expect the money to go this high, and that's all Steinbrenner that decided on his own that I'm going to try to do this for the Yankee fans. He knew how much the Yankee fans wanted him back, but truthfully, it's better for the Yankees that they didn't get him back. If you get him back, you're playing Judge in center field. Judge ices his knees a lot after games. It's going to take probably 2 years away from his career playing him in center field. Putting him in the short right field at Yankee Stadium, he can use his height to jump and take away home runs. There's less field to cover. That's the best position for Judge. It's less running around. Hey, he played a good center field. It's shocking to me that Judge has never won a Gold Glove and never even had a nomination because he's very good out there. He's very underrated as an outfielder. But if you get Soto back, you're not going to be able to do a lot of other things. And I think right now we're seeing the Mets with Soto. They're not winning. The Mets, I look at the Soto situation, and for Soto saying he wanted to win, to me, I don't know that this is the best spot. He's dealing with the Dodgers in the National League. The Dodgers spend as much or more than Cohen and the Mets, and they're getting a lot of money coming back in from endorsements from Japan for Ohtani, Yamamoto, tons of money, hundreds of millions of dollars are coming in for those Japanese guys. So you're getting a lot of that money back. By the time they pay that money to Ohtani, they're going to have it back in interest probably. So then you're in the NL East. You're dealing with the Phillies, another billionaire owner, and the Braves have always had a great organization from top to bottom. So it's going to be tough to finish first and second in the NL East all these years. Well, look at the Mets have done for their rotation so far. Hey, I really like Clay Holmes personally. Had a really good relationship with him. Frankie Montas and I have a mutual friend, so I like him personally. But
how do you like that Clay Holmes situation in the rotation, though? Because I mean,
that's ridiculous.
It's wild, isn't it?
It's look, the Yankees, to get him to be successful in the playoffs, had to put him in their lane, as the new phrase that they say now. Put him in a lane so he can face guys. Look, when he came over, the reason he went from bad in Pittsburgh to great with the Yankees was that sinker was one of the best sinkers in baseball. Well, last year I think hitters hit over 300 with that sinker. The slider was his best pitch, and you had to put him against certain hitters that he could get out in that lane, and you don't have a lane when you're a starting pitcher. Now, look, it's different nowadays. You know, when your dad Gary was on the Braves, and he has Maddox and Smoltz and Glavine there. Those guys are going 7-8 innings all the time.
Yeah.
Nowadays, guys think they have a good a quality start in their mind if they're holding a team to 3 runs in 5 1/3 innings, which is ridiculous to me.
If they're lighting up that radar gun and they're coming out the game in the 4th or 5th, they have 5 or 6 Ks, they're happy. And we've seen guys come into free agency say, I don't care if we walk guys, I'm trying to miss bats. The game's changed completely. But long story short, Randy, my takeaway there is that, and as we thought, Juan Soto didn't go to Verizon Wireless and change his phone number. The story seemed ridiculous in its own right. We knew he didn't change his phone number going into free agency. It's just insane. But obviously it's good to have somebody in the know confirming that, because at this point there's nothing wrong. And Michael Kay echoed the same exact sentiment, is that, yeah, he's after top dollar. If the Miami Marlins, in Kay's words, offer the most money, it's where he's going. And we've said on this show, if Juan Soto wants top dollar, that makes perfect sense. It's dollars. Everybody wants money. But to suggest that, oh, I changed my number, that's why I didn't talk to Judge. Oh, it's not that I didn't like my teammates or want to be there. It's all these other different moving parts. You have to imagine Juan Soto's he's going to play with 3, 4, 5 different teams by the end of his career, that maybe that's for a reason.
Well, as you say, everybody wants money, but how much money is enough that you can say that your kids are in great shape? I thought when it went over 700 million, I was thinking, all right, he's going to get the record here. He's going to break Ohtani's 700. At that point, maybe he will do what's best for him, and what's best for him. And it's a guy that wants to make the Hall of Fame, and he probably will. But his numbers are going to be better if Aaron Judge is hitting behind him. Let's face it. If it's flip flop and Judge is hitting second, and Soto's hitting third last year, Judge might hit 70 home runs. By the way that Soto, it seems like every game he costs the starting pitcher an inning because his bats are so long. Great at bats, and that's not to diss him. I feel like I learned hitting by watching this guy and talking to him. Great hitter, but he's a one-dimensional guy. He's not a great base runner. He's not a good fielder. He can't go back on balls, and he's not a leader. Judge is a leader. When he goes to the Mets, Lindor's the leader on that team. And I had somebody tell me today that one of the biggest reasons why the Mets should bring back Alonso is Alonso might be the one guy that can keep him in line on the Mets. Look, this again, I don't want to go into stories, but you would not believe the stuff I heard in San Diego when I was out there about how despised that guy was by the entire organization.
Interesting.
On down.
Wow.
And one person told me this year that, why do you think we're winning this year? It's because Soto's not here. Now, look, Soto's a great player, but that's just somebody's opinion that said that.
It's a strong opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he does kind of come off like a mercenary, like, goes to the highest bidder. He's already played for 4 teams in his young career. I mean, kind of tells you something. But I do want to ask you, because
the Mets, though, that's the one thing. He was not going to sell one ticket with the Yankees because they sell anyway, and they judge. He will sell tickets for the Mets. So in the short term, it's going to make the Mets some of that money back.
That's definitely true. Talking about replacing Juan Soto, there was really only one player that Gary and I felt like could even get to that point, and that was Kyle Tucker. Even before he started getting mentioned, we're like, I don't know if this guy's going to be available, but he would be a great fit. And then all of a sudden he became available, and we were like, okay, well, they need to get this thing done. And then out of the blue, you have the Chicago Cubs, who are almost never in on these type of deals, and they get him. So I want to ask you, were the Yankees really serious bidders, for Kyle Tucker? Who was, I guess, the most that they were willing to offer? Because it just never felt like, we kept hearing, they're going to have this big deal, and all this stuff kept coming out, and it just felt like we never got anything on that side. And then sure enough, Kyle Tucker's going to the Chicago Cubs, and you're like, that was your lifeline. Why didn't you go after it? So I guess, what are your thoughts on that, and anything you heard about that whole situation?
Well, I know the Yankees really liked him, and they tried to get him, but the Yankees' best offer was prospects, and I was told that they did not offer any of their top 5 prospects, and the Cubs were the Astros were insisting on Luis Hill, and the Yankees' number 1 pick from 2 years ago, the kid out of Miami whose dad played in the big leagues. That's who they were insisting on. Now, the thing I would have done if I'm the Yankees, I would have given up those 2 on a condition that you get 72 hours to negotiate a contract. Now, the problem with Soto's contract is that's increased Tucker's value. He does not have Scott Boras as an agent. I was told he probably would negotiate right now, but what might have been a $300 million contract now may be a $400 or $500 contract. Personally, I would rather have Tucker than Juan Soto because Tucker is so good defensively.
I agree.
And that's not dissing Soto. I greatly appreciate what he brings. A lot of what his best keep in mind, 2 years ago, I think he hit about 240, 242 in San Diego and Washington that last year. So this guy can have bad years. And he did have this amazing year last year, again, hitting in front of Aaron Judge. That offered a heck of a lot of protection there. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure that the Yankees didn't realize that the price on Tucker might have been just crazy high, and I don't think that they wanted to give up. Look, if the one thing the Yankees, with or without Soto, they have a lot of big money guys. Cole, Stanton, George Lombard's the other guy I was thinking of, by the way. The other guy that the number one pick from a couple years ago that the Astros wanted in addition to Luis Hill. But if you're going to have big money guys on your team, Stanton, Judge, Cole, and others, you have to have some good players that are making close to minimum money. And right now, Hill was rookie of the year last year. What did he win? 15, 16 games as making close to minimum wage. So you need some of those guys. So one of the reasons they wanted to trade Nestor's salary was going up. They're trying hard to get rid of Stroman. Stroman's what, 18 million this year, and if he pitches 130 or 140 innings, he's a player option to get another 18 million next year.
Oh boy.
Yankees want nothing to do with that.
And we love the guy on this show. I mean,
yeah,
we thought in general,
guy, he's really intelligent.
He's great. Yeah.
What's crazy is that he had when a couple years ago when the Yankees didn't trade him, and he starts ripping Cashman on Twitter. The whole reason that he said he ripped Cashman on Twitter was Cashman said if they trade for me, that I wasn't good enough to be in the postseason rotation. So they give this guy, 2 years and a player option. And how many innings did he pitch in the rotation or relief last year? Wasn't even on the roster for the division series. And then LCS and World Series, he's on and gets 0 innings. So I found that kind of amusing. That said, the guy's fascinating. I mean, this guy lives in some kind of chamber to get great air, and he has incense burning in his locker, and
he's sleeping in the hyperbaric chamber.
Apparently. Yeah, he's an intelligent guy. He's fun to talk to, and he really has a chip on his shoulder for being a short guy who was passed over a lot. And the guy's had a good career. He really has. He's been to 2 All-Star games, and as bad as he was in the second half last year, it wasn't like Rodon 2 years ago, and his first half was pretty good. There was a little bit of consideration for him even going to the All-Star game in the first half. I think his ERA was in a high 2s or low 3s.
And he was a good teammate as well in 2024. I know obviously he had that situation happen with Gleyber Torres that looked bad in the moment, but he did walk that back and held himself accountable, which was good. Part of, to your point, Aaron Judge is just a great leader and just honing that in. But Randy, my last question.
Torres, a lot of people held it in with Torres. And while I really like Torres personally, I had a scout when Torres was traded to the Yankees I think it was a Chapman trade in 2016. I was sent to Brevard County, Florida, to watch his first 2 or 3 games. He was with Tampa Yankees at the time. They didn't change their name yet. And I remember meeting a scout that day, and they says, this guy has a baseball. He's 19 or 20 years old, and he has a baseball IQ like he's 26 or 27. And I talked to this same scout last year and says, this guy now is 27, and now he has a baseball IQ of a 13-year-old.
Oh, so he's Benjamin Button of baseball.
I wrote that once, yes. And
love that.
He's a great guy. He has amazing talent. He had the 38 homers his first full year. All-Star game is his first year with 24 homers. He didn't get called up until, I think, early May. But yet he makes some of the most ridiculous plays. And I think he was thrown out more than anyone in the game at home plate this year. And because of those reasons, he's not coming back. And, the trade that I love the reliever they just picked up, Devin Williams. But I'm surprised they give up Caleb Durbin there because they really like this guy I talked to people that saw him in the fall league who said this kid was amazing. All year long, people were telling me this kid is like a Dustin Pedroia, not quite the power, but he's kind of a baseball rat kind of guy, and he's going to have a good career. And when we talked to Cashman the first day of the winter meetings, he said, right now, this guy's our starting second baseman. Soto goes the next day, and then they trade or they bring in. He's gone in a couple of days later. So it's interesting they got rid of him, and
Crazy.
I think Jazz will probably be the second or third baseman depending on what they do there. I don't know that they're going to get Bregman, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do because they have a lot of holes. And one last thing, I know a lot of fans are saying the Yankees, they offered Soto $760 million, so they need to spend the $760 million. No,
Right.
no, the $760 million was over 15 years.
Thank you.
$750 million was what? $47 million in this year's luxury tax. It's not like they're going to go spend $700 million and put it on the next 5 years of the payroll. That's ridiculous. They're going to be competitive. They're always competitive. They're going to get guys and they're going to have a team. And look, right now they already, and for my money, the Yankees in Seattle have the best two rotations in the league, and no one's even close.
Yeah. Last question. Roki Sasaki, huge question mark coming into this offseason, not just for us, but for all these other teams. Is there pressure on Brian Cashman to get something done within this 25-day window of him making a decision? Because they have to sell him on what he's getting himself into. And obviously the Yankees right now is, they just lost Juan Soto. Kyle Tucker was kind of that fallback plan. What do you think?
Forget about him. He's not coming here. Everything I hear, it's Dodgers. Padres.
I appreciate the honesty. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's Dodgers. Yeah. Look, when you have Ohtani and Yamamoto out there, Japan's a lot closer flight home from LA. And then I hear his hero was Darvish. So I hear he's either going to San Diego to play for his hero, or he's going to go with the best two Japanese players in the game and go to LA and win a bunch of World Series. So I've heard I know the Yankees really like him, but and they will try, but keep in mind that they loved Ohtani too, and Ohtani wanted nothing to do with them twice. It's like right now, better weather in LA, less media pressure. Ohtani barely talks to the media. I think that's a better situation to fly back home. He's going to the Dodgers or Padres. That's what I would bet my money on. I'm not a gambler. But he's not coming to the Yankees.
Yeah, Jake, he's right about the media. I'm telling you guys right now, people think like LA is this major market. It's a big market. It's nothing like New York. I literally used to watch Ichiro look me dead in my face and say, watch this. He'd throw a pair of glasses on, a backpack, and like a computer, a laptop, and walk right out of locker. No one say a word to the guy.
I was a Philly writer for 16, 17 years, and I remember going in the Yankee clubhouse one time when Ichiro was there, and one Japanese reporter was talking to him, and there was about 15 others standing about 20 feet away. And I knew one of the Japanese reporters said, "Why aren't you guys talking to him?" He goes, "Because Ichiro only talks to the one reporter, and it's up to him to give us whatever he decides to give us." So Ichiro only talked to one Japanese reporter whenever he wanted. And I thought it was hilarious too that he did all these interviews in Japanese, and he speaks good English. A buddy of mine who knows
great English
well says Ohtani speaks perfect English. You never know it by his seldom interviews he does. Anyway.
That's crazy. Well, Randy, we really appreciate your time. And I guess one quick thing here. If there's a player out there you want to put your name on, that would be a Yankee. Out of everybody that we've heard, who's the most likely, aside from Cody Bellinger?
Yeah, it's Cody Bellinger if they get the money. I'd say the most likely would be Christian Walker. That's the guy that they really, really like. I think the holdup with Christian Walker being signed is his age. He's going to be 34 in March, and I think most people would like to give him a 3-year contract, 2 and an option, and he's probably going to get 4. If you look at MLB trade rumors, all the predictions, they're going way high. By the way, Gary, one last thing. I remember when I was a Philly beat writer, Larry Bowa was manager. He raved about you. He more than anybody in the game. Sheffield, man, he kills us. He just went on. I'm telling you what, Sheffield was Babe Ruth to Larry Bowa, and he when he was in Atlanta, especially, oh my God, he just killed the Phillies, and it ate up Bowa, and he wanted him on the Phillies so bad, and instead they beat him. He beat him.
Yeah, so he used to. I remember. I think it was a Jamie Moyer, because my dad used to have me run up to the board when they'd be playing Philadelphia. He's like, "Hey, can you go see who we're facing?" And I'd tell him, "Oh yeah, you're facing so and so in Philadelphia." He'd go, "Oh, we're playing Philly? Oh, thank goodness." He couldn't wait to play him. I guess sometimes you just have someone's number. There's a confidence thing, but for anyone, obviously, Randy, you've met him.
He had over 500 home runs, and for a good long stretch there, he was as feared as anybody in the game. Jamie Moyer, I knew very well. We were pretty tight in his years of Philly, and
great dude.
Just amazing. He was pitching until he was like 47, 48 years old, breaking bats, throwing 82 mile an hour. Crazy.
Yeah, no, my dad did okay for himself, but Randy, thank you so much. Anytime you can come on the podcast, our audience would love it. Jake and I would absolutely love it. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Take care.
You too. Take care, Randy. All right. That was awesome. Really
that was electric.
Electric, yeah. No, we
Randy
really
was
enjoyed
delivering.
his time. Yeah, and I feel like, we got a lot out of that, obviously. Had a great time talking with him. And, I feel like, right now, Christian Walker does sound, because that initially, right? Initially, Christian Walker was the name we kept hearing. 3 years, $63 million. It was all over, Twitter and whatnot. And then it kind of it died down. And I think it makes sense why it died down, because you have the Cody Bellinger trade, and is he an outfielder? Is he a first baseman? I think he could play both. But, if you get Walker, maybe you could still bring in Bellinger. I think really we're going to find out, because what do they do with Jazz? There are a lot of different pieces here that kind of coincide and decide where we're going, what direction we're going in. Is Jazz going to play second or third? They have to figure that out.
What did you think about that, by the way? Because Jazz Chisholm, this has been a humongous topic this offseason.
I would play him at third, right?
Oh, you would?
Okay. I've been honest about that, because I think he could be the best third baseman in the league with just
you do?
Well, yeah. The athletic profile he has is off the charts. He throws absolute beams, right? And he's got you don't normally just get thrown at third and you just make it work immediately. Like, there was no drop off. He had those growing pains, but that happens to anyone that's playing for the first time at a new position. So
that's fair.
I just think Jazz, the range, not just the range athletically with his legs and getting to the baseball and his reaction, but you look at that arm strength, and it's kind of a waste having him at second base. You know what I'm saying?
It's definitely fair to consider it a waste. I think me specifically, I don't really care if I put a guy who I think can play third base, and I know for sure he can play second at an extremely high level. The way I view it is that if a player is in the correct position and you say, well, I could have put him at third base, well, then maybe you just need a better third baseman, somebody whose position, their natural position, is to play well at third base. It's exactly the same conversation as Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, right? IKF was a player that you and I both enjoyed on this podcast, and we thought would actually be a decent fit given where you put him. But we put IKF at third base. That did not work. Shortstop, that did not work. Specifically short. And people were saying, well, why isn't he playing shortstop to the same level that he was playing third base? Well, all these positions are different. So I try to tell people, for me specifically, I would like to see Jazz Chisholm at second base, because I need to see the best offensive version from Jazz Chisholm in 2025. I need to see him take steps forward. Some of the ways you saw him being undisciplined, right, getting outside of himself with his swing, I think we can hone that in a lot better if he's at his natural position at second base. But the catch here, Jake, before we get to some of these super chats with Jeff J, is you really need to put him in a position to succeed and find a better replacement. If you don't have a third baseman that we feel comfortable with better than Jazz Chisholm, we have no choice but to use him over there and let him use that athleticism.
That's fair. And that's a really interesting point that you just made. The idea that maybe some of his struggles down the stretch could have had to do with playing third base and just constantly thinking about it. And you get an error, and we always talk about how it's such a mental game, to hit, and you get an error and then you're thinking about it the next time. Jazz isn't like a straight up professional. He's very unorthodox. He does things a different way. He wears a green belt, and probably George Steinbrenner is rolling in his grave when he's doing it. But this is a guy that does things a little bit differently. And I think what you're saying actually makes a lot of sense. What I would argue is that it's going to feel natural with a full offseason of work at third. And I want to see him stay there because I just think the upside is immense. And I think that there's just not a lot of third basemen that are available, that are really good, that you're getting defensively and can hit. Some can hit, can't really defend. Some are just kind of thrown out there. Like Yandy Diaz to me is more of a first baseman, was kind of thrown at third. Paredes to a degree. There are guys like that just they got thrown in at third because we call them corner infielders, right? The third base and first base. And it's like, how does that come to be?
That makes no sense.
They're completely different positions.
Matt Chapman and one can be Matt Chapman, the other one could be Jason Giambi. So the fact that people just call it, oh, that guy's a corner guy. I think it's a way for them to say you weigh too much or you're too tall to play shortstop or second base. I don't get it.
It is
weird. It does not make sense.
Yeah, that is exactly. And the thing is, I understand you need reaction time at first and you need reaction time at third. But at first, you're just going over and touching the bag or you're flipping the ball. At third, you now have to do the job of the first baseman, having that reaction time. But now you got to throw across the damn diamond, and that's not easy. And then your throw to second isn't easy, right? So that's the thing, is that it's a completely different position. And really, we got to stop calling. It's like corner outfielder. It is what it is, right? I don't really care, even though everyone kind of has the assumption that left field, you just throw your worst outfielder out there. But at Yankee Stadium, as you've brought multiple times, it's a tough position to play. It's not,
Fenway,
easy.
That might be true. Yeah, you throw the Manny Ramirez of the team. Yeah, you throw him in left. I think that makes sense. Yeah. But Jeff J with the super. Jeff, we really appreciate the 10. Thank you for supporting the show. He says, evening, brothers. I'd like Bellinger and Nico. So obviously he's talking about that combo trade with the Chicago Cubs. But salary relief, and this is definitely a good point, for the Cubbies also lets them work an extension with Tucker. We need to win now, but damn, I want Tucker in pinstripes in 2026. So
I agree.
This is true. Okay, just right off rip, that is true. But as far as I'm concerned, you have to imagine the point that Randy brought up, which is that Tucker has gotten immensely more expensive now that Juan Soto has just inked the richest deal in baseball history. So you just have to hope and pray that the Chicago Cubs don't strike a deal with Tucker mid-season. Because once you get to the offseason, all bets are off. The Yankees have every opportunity to get the player. And
that's going to be a damn funeral.
Right. So you just have to imagine, if you take 100% of the money, because there are a lot of people just like Jeff, just like me, just like Jake, who really like the idea of Cody Bellinger in pinstripes. Well, how much do you like it? Because if you love it, perhaps you'll take 100% of that contract from Chicago, and that may end up biting you in the tuchus when you turn around and they spend that money on Kyle Tucker. Now, all of a sudden, we have one option, and that is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. next offseason. So it's interesting how a trade right now that can make us absolutely better in taking on some money, a player that we all agree we would like to have, might end up screwing us over, if you will, next offseason. So Brian Cashman has a tough job. We want said player, but at what cost?
I agree. And, I think the thing is, going back to what you were saying about Bellinger and how much you like Bellinger, I like him as almost kind of a buy low. That's the thing. And so I'm not willing to take on all that money because now he doesn't feel very buy low, right? And this is a guy that hasn't really performed at the level that we know he's capable of. And really the hope is that at Yankee Stadium and with those splits, and I know you saw them, they are not good at Wrigley at all. They're awful at Wrigley Field. So it tells me when you look and he's hitting 230 at Wrigley Field and he's hitting 280 on the road. Well, now I feel a lot better about this player, but at the same time, I'm not willing to shell out all that money and give you prospects as well. I mean, I'm not giving you prospects and giving up all that money or taking on all that money. I'd be like, all right, you know what? You want to do it this way? Fine. Take on DJ LeMahieu's contract because I'm not taking on all that money. I'm not. So that's how I feel, is that I think the Yankees really, if there's no, Cody Bellinger and then maybe Nico Horner, I think you have to include Nico Horner if I'm taking on that money. And even still, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, well, Nico Horner's not free.
Yeah.
He's still going to cost us a pretty penny. And Randy did bring up a really solid point. I think we've touched on
A
this
lot of
before.
good points.
People look at, oh, well, you didn't spend $775 million, so you've got $775 to spend. No, you have $47.5 million to spend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, there's no salary cap, so it doesn't mean it has to just go one for one. But what it does say is that the Yankees and Hal Steinbrenner agreed to spend $47 million at the time. And they agreed to spend $47.5 million this year, next year, and the next 13 years after that. That was the agreement. So as far as anytime you see anybody on X saying, oh, well, we didn't spend 70-75, so we can spend 218 on Max Fried. We can go maybe spend 300 on Vladdy Jr. next year, or 350 on Vladdy Jr., or Kyle Tucker at 400 million. Kyle Tucker's still going to be making, guys, low 40s. So you're talking about an $11 million gap between he and Juan Soto. That's not very much money. Okay.
No.
So I think people need to hone in those expectations, because that was a great point. People just assume 775 is money that we can just throw outbound. No, we have to look at things through a lens of annual salary. And as far as I'm concerned, we spent on Max Fried, really nice pickup there. We have about $20 to $25 million we would like to spend. So you need to spend wisely to keep yourself open and available if Kyle Tucker becomes available next offseason. So I want to catch up on some super chats. Ed W says, love Randy Miller. Thanks so much for bringing him and Ariel on. Thought Ariel was great. Common sense, no fake news. PS Mets are the New York Jets of baseball. Yeah, even when you feel like, Ed, that they do something correct, like who really gives a rip? If you spent $775 million, it's not anybody else's money other than Steve Cohen's, right? Steve Cohen they don't have a business model where the Mets revenue is going to pay for the salary. No, he's just coming out of pocket to get this player, right? And Jake has even called it potentially long-term dangerous. Well, my thing is that they had to get this player. The Juan Soto had to be a Met. As far as they were concerned, they made promises for years of getting this guy, and they got him. Now you need to deliver on winning, and we're going to find out, Ed, and to Ed's point, he doesn't think that's going to happen. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we're not rooting for the Mets to win on this show, but that's friendly competition. You go get the player that everybody wanted. Now come and get us. Come beat us, because we're still the Yankees and we still have work to do. M. Beers, I think this is a new name I haven't seen, says if the Astros and Yanks were going to make a deal weren't going to make a deal because of history and AL rivals. We heard that before, Jake. How impossible for the Yanks to work a massive swing for Tucker, Bellinger, Horner, and money, Heel. So essentially, they traded Tucker to the Cubs. What's the opportunity there to now flip players and prospects and a whole bunch of money for Tucker now for the Cubs? I've long said this. I said this on X the day this trade with Tucker and the Cubs went down. Jake, I cannot possibly. First of all, M. Beers, thank you so much for the super chat and supporting the show.
Thank you so much.
There's no possible way I can say with a right mind that I'm open to a trade with the Cubs, because we've heard nothing to suggest that that's underway. We have no knowledge whatsoever that the Cubs just swung a trade like this, and their only objective was to flip them to us. Now, that is possible technically, but as far as we're concerned, we've never read a report from Curry. Michael Kay hasn't said anything. Jeff Passan hasn't said a word. Nothing says that he's coming anywhere near the Yankees until, at best, either the deadline or 2026.
Yeah, I think that's it's interesting, but not with what they gave up. Like, you gave up your draft pick from this draft in the first round, Cade Smith. I just don't see it. Like, when they did that and they gave up Isak Paredes, who they gave up a lot of prospects to get at the deadline, and you and I were like, why'd they do that? That has to be one of the worst moves, by the way. Like, I understand it got them Kyle Tucker, but they would have gotten Kyle Tucker. They would have given up somebody else. They probably would have traded Nico Horner. So that was a wacky trade. Because, like, remember we were talking about this, making a deadline move when you're kind of in purgatory, really, you had no chance of winning. And so then the argument was they liked him for the long term. He had 5 years of control. And then they just trade him like that. So
I guess he has value, right? I mean,
it's weird.
It's strange.
And we've talked about it I think
But they
he's
also
overrated.
didn't know at the time, to be fair. They had no idea that Kyle Tucker is going to be available from Houston. So
That is
things
true.
do change. So I'm
Things
going to,
do.
and Chicago does know, for those of you who wondering, like, what are the Cubs doing? Well, the Brewers did, right? You got rid of Corbin Burns the previous offseason. Adames is now a Giant. So the way they look at this is maybe we can scratch the surface and show we're a contender, sell Kyle Tucker on something, and now you do have a cornerstone. So Kyle Tucker sounds excited to be a Cub. Based on what he's saying, he sounds different than Juan Soto sounded as a Yankee. I know people said that
Most
Juan Soto
players
made
do.
he made his Instagram bio a bunch of Yankee stuff, and people were like, he's not going anywhere. I was like, because he made an Instagram bio? I was like, dude, 13-year-olds make Instagram bios. That doesn't mean a damn thing.
Switched it right to the Mets, the colors and everything.
Within the day, it was changed.
Yeah. Kyle, appreciate the super chat. Just getting over being sick. Sorry about that. Hope you're doing well now. I've been out of the loop in the last few days. Why aren't the Yankees making the Bellinger trade? Thought it was close. Oh, so did we all. It's been close now for over 300 hours, I would say.
It's unfortunate. Oh, by the way, did we skip Ed W? Because he was talking about Durbin.
Yeah, we'll double back
get
to that.
It. Yeah, so first of all, Kyle, I think everybody was sick this past week. Like my whole house, we were all under the weather. Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, to get back to the Cody Bellinger situation, nobody knows, right? It's a matter of Brian Cashman has the numbers in front of his face. We're not going to get a chance to see those numbers. And at some point or another, Brian Cashman's going to make the decision. Do I spend the money and give the years to a 33-year-old Christian Walker? And 33 is not, we can't act like this is a senior citizen. It's a 33-year-old, right? He's going to be good for probably 2 years of that contract. A really good player. Great defensive player, huge defensive upgrade. Do I do that? Or do I eat the money on Cody Bellinger? But Jake, to your point, and Kyle's excited about Bellinger or hoping for Bellinger, I assume. Well, it is a risk. He didn't have a career year in 2024. He didn't get the 8-year contract. In large part, those power numbers were down, right? Contact numbers were up. And there's a lot of reasons when you watch Cody Bellinger to see what he's good at and how that can help the Yankees. So I agree with you, Jake. This whole perspective on Cody Bellinger, I would absolutely take the risk to bring him in, but a $53 million risk? No, a player getting paid over $25 million a year, that's more than we pay Giancarlo Stanton. So my perspective is that if you're going to pay a guy $20-some million to play baseball, you better be sure he's going to be good for your organization. And I'm not sure on Cody Bellinger about what he's going to do in 2025, but I know what he has the potential to do. So how much am I willing to pay for potential? Probably not 26 million, probably
And
somewhere
prospects.
in the territory of, and prospects, probably somewhere in the territory of, I don't know, 12 to $15 million I'd be willing to pay.
No, I think that's fair, but I also think it's important to remember, if I'm not mistaken, he has a player opt-out. So it's like, this is basically a 1-year deal that you're like, you did the same thing with Soto. Obviously, you didn't give up as much, and you wouldn't have to give up as much, but still the idea, like, it's a buy low opportunity that is being, it seems like they're trying to have both, which I don't think you can do. I think right now you have to understand, if you're cutting your losses with Cody Bellinger now, you're cutting your losses. You can't have it both ways. And the Yankees are like, look, we're not trying to be cheap, but like, this is ridiculous. We're not taking on his full deal. We're trying to buy low on this guy, and you're trying to sell. You're cutting your losses. You're not selling high. He's not coming off a great year. He's coming off an okay year. He was an average player last year.
So you think that Christian Walker stuff's real, by the way? Because you just gave me a thought. The Christian Walker stuff, is there any potential that Brian Cashman's like, hey, I'm going to tell this reporter we're going to inch toward Christian Walker? But when you tell people, yeah, we're getting really close to this deal, remember what happened with the Cubs trade, right? We were hearing that the Cubs and Kyle Tucker were nearing a deal, and everyone's sitting there wondering in Yankees land going, just make the deal already. Pull the Band-Aid off. It seems like you guys are like trying to call our bluff. Oh, you throw Heel in. All Yankees fans said, okay, well, if the Cubs are close, throw Luis Heel in this trade. And it changes essentially your perspective and basically says either crap or get off the pot. Well, my perspective is, are they using Christian Walker to sort of negotiate Cody Bellinger's contract down? So I'm at least curious to the idea. What do you think?
I'm putting this guy in a timeout currently. Let's see. Yeah, I don't need that. What do I think? Let's see. Well, look, I think that Christian Walker is a guy they really like, and if he was 2 or 3 years younger, then he'd already be a Yankee. I think that's the issue right now. And I think they're willing to, they're willing to work with the age, but the deal has to make sense, and they're not going to bid against themselves. And that's the thing. I mean, Cashman said, we're not going to spend like drunken sailors. And he's right. And you know what? Regardless of how people feel about that, and I understand, going all in and all that, this is the thing that needs to be said in regards to the 2025 Yankees. They don't have to spend money. They need to go out and trade for guys if they don't do that. They can do a little bit of both. They could do one or the other. There are different ways to build a team. To me, I think it is grossly overspending, and we already talked about this, to go out and get Bregman, who can't hit at Yankee Stadium, and give him top dollar because the market isn't very good. A guy who's only good in the second half of the season. Well, that's great. And then he gets to the postseason, and he's a timely hitter. He has those moments, but he's not great. He's not a great postseason hitter. He's good to okay. And then you have Anthony Santander. What do you want me to say? I mean, this is Edward Encarnacion. It's not crazy to say that. Edwin Encarnacion, Adam Dunn, obviously a little bit better batting average, but not much better. And you're telling me he has 40-plus home runs in a contract year, and I'm supposed to go over and give $30 million to him? I'm not interested in that.
Would you consider him a star by any stretch?
Not at all.
So my takeaway on this offseason and what remains, right? Because there are plenty of moves that can be made, not just for the Yankees, but all of these teams. I reckon that outside of Kyle Tucker, who was just dealt to the Cubs, there aren't any stars unless you consider Vladimir Guerrero Jr. available, who just declined a $300+ million contract with the Blue Jays. If you consider him available, then great. You'd probably consider him somewhat of a star. But as far as I'm concerned, wouldn't it be a shame to spend $65 million on players that a lot of us would just consider, oh, he's a pretty good player. He's a solid fit. And then you go into next offseason and they say, well, I mean, we don't have any money coming off the books. Christian Walker is on the books next year, right? A lot of these players that we just signed are on the books. And then people are going to turn and say, hey, how's Kyle Tucker sound in 2026? And they're going to tell you guys, well, we're already at $260 million. So unless he's taking $25 million, it's not going to happen. So I know Yankees fans want great players on this team, but I really want people to hesitate to just throw money at an incremental upgrade. That's my issue right now, is it seems like a lot of the upgrades, unless they're via trade, they just seem like it's too much money for what we're getting. And I think Christian Walker might be the only player I'm comfortable spending on because I know what he's great at. And first and foremost, it's that glove. I think the Yankees need to get exponentially better defensively in 2025. I think he brings it. So unless they're going to bring down the money significantly on Bellinger, I just be done with the Bellinger thing and just get Christian Walker now, because you know what you can say? Well, if you want us to take this player, we can throw him in the outfield now, to your point. So I think the Yankees right now are just being maybe a little too patient, and they need to get proactive here.
I agree. You know what's really funny? I am 100% of the belief. I have the perfect analogy for this. And I'm not saying the Yankees have done this. They've actually been avoiding doing this. Do you remember the 2016 NBA free agency with Timothy Mozgov?
Yes, and he got like $90 million. Timofey Mozgov stunk.
Yeah. Do you know who paid him?
Was it the Lakers?
The Lakers. Do you know who else they paid that offseason? They gave 4 years, $72 million to Luol Deng.
Oh, yeah, and they stretched that money for like...
They're still paying it, I'm pretty sure.
Jacoby Ellsbury.
So what I'm getting at, and the reason why I have that kind of analogy is because that is essentially what paying Santander is going to be. That's what's paying a lot of these guys. You could say Teoscar Hernandez, but why would he come to the Yankees when he could just stay with the World Series champion Dodgers, who want him back and who could offer him more money? So this is what I think. I think Walker is probably the only guy that they are going to sign if they do. And if they don't, gotta be honest with you, it's going to be all trades. And you know what? That's not all that bad. If you can find the right guys, I mean, that's the thing. Like, go out there. People keep mentioning Taylor Ward. I want to look up him right now because we're live and I'd rather know more about his
What
savant.
happened with that? Because they told us, we saw multiple reports that he was just on his way out the door. And then nothing happened. And by the way, guys, if you're here, make sure you guys subscribe, like the video, helps
Aaron
out.
Judge's teammate.
Appreciate it.
At Fresno State.
I didn't even know this.
So Taylor Ward is Aaron Judge's teammate. He's got a 73rd percentile fielding run value. Mm-hmm. He hit 246 last year. He hit 253 the year prior. But in 2022, he hit 281. So, okay, like he hasn't been amazing the last 2 years. And he is a righty bat. But this would be a left fielder who doesn't chase, who has a decent amount of red, in his savant page. Good range. Because I keep seeing him being mentioned. And I don't know. It's weird. This is how I would absolutely sum it up like that. The Angels are weird. Like
I just saw something in the chat I really like, by the way. I know you're gonna hate it. I just know. Just I don't want to project the answer on you. So I'll give you the floor after. Yeah, I'll release the Kraken. What do you think of Josh Naylor? Because
I hate it.
I want to bring up one thing about this player. Now, obviously, if you look at Baseball Savant, he's very good. Okay. And don't forget what he did last year. And here's what makes me excited about this player is that I think Josh Naylor is a player that people look at and kind of make the assumption based on kind of how he moves around offensively. Oh, that guy doesn't look like he'd be very good defensively. Probably doesn't have very good range. Doesn't look like he knows what he's doing over there. No, he does. Defensively, his range is 61st percentile. So he's pretty good. Now, offensively, what makes this an attractive pickup for me, he's a 27-year-old player. His baseline season is 260. He's going to hit 260. He's going to hit 25 homers. And if you get the player you saw in 2023, the Yankees have an absolute steal. No one is saying Cleveland is going to deal this player. Have no idea what's to come. But, of course, everybody says, I see it in the chat now. I could feel it. It was my spidey senses. Someone says, well, why would Cleveland help the Yankees? Why would any team want to help any other team? Right? It's baseball. The only reason people would make a trade with you or your organization is that you're giving them something that they can use. That's how trades work. You guys think that Houston wanted to get rid of Kyle Tucker? No, they didn't. But they didn't want to give him the extension that they know they're going to have to pay. So they help the Chicago Cubs. That's just how trades work. So, yeah, we have no idea what this would cost. I see it. I don't know.
He's going to be a free agent in 2026. So I don't know.
He has to be very well. Oh, so you're saying after this season?
Yeah. So I don't know what it would cost.
That's interesting.
As far as his DRS, defensive runs saved, -6 is not great.
See, I don't understand how they come up with those numbers because when you go to Savant, they show his range being excellent. So it's like if your range is good, how are you bad at first base?
I think because this probably measures like how like his pathway to the ball, but DRS is the result. That's the difference. So is he capable of it? Sure. But the results are telling me he's a negative fielder, which, to be fair, So is and I want to be fair here. I want to be objective because I don't like
who is
Josh
it?
Naylor. To be fair, Yandy Diaz is not.
Oh,
He's not a great fielder.
we knew that. That
But
dude can't field a lick.
I think that bat is so good that I don't even care.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to improve defensively, does it mean that every player you bring in has to be a defensive wizard? Because at some point or another, you have to bring in a player and say, okay, he's not a good fielder at first base, but is he going to rake in pinstripes? If the answer is yes, then great. Welcome aboard. Find defensive upgrades at third base. Find me a defensive upgrade in the outfield. We just lost Juan Soto. The replacement of Juan Soto is, I guarantee, going to be better defensively in 2025. Find another outfielder. If you bring Spencer Jones up from your system, he should be a defensive upgrade. Find upgrades in other ways. Every player you bring on, and Josh Naylor, obviously you're uncovering some of the analytics. I don't know how much I just say, oh, okay, well, DRS says that he's a bad defender, so we just chalk it up to that. But I'll tell you this, if you're going to hit that way, especially at Yankee Stadium, those numbers are only going to get better. So I don't know. And also maybe our shave policy might do him some good.
I just think, like, as far as if I was going to go with a guy who isn't the best defender, wouldn't cost as much, 33-year-old Yandy Diaz. I just think that bat, he's a 288 career hitter, 806 OPS. If you give me Diaz, Horner, and Bellinger and put Bellinger out in left field, this team is way better than like they were, a second ago. And that team, because when you look at the grand scheme of things and you got your rotation and you got your bullpen, now you start to look at who's in your lineup and you're like, I know they don't have Juan Soto and they don't have that big, but they got a lot of contact that they're adding with Yandy Diaz. And I think the upside with Bellinger is a guy that can hit 30-plus bombs at Yankee Stadium. And then you have Nico Horner, who is another contact bat that can steal. So I think that makes the Yankees a better team, and that's why I went with them. I didn't go with Horner, actually. I went with Ketel Marte, which brings me to my point here in why I brought it up to Randy Miller, because, I think a lot of, it takes two to tango when it comes to trades, and you don't know who's available if you don't call. And I just think the Yankees really need to see if Arizona would seriously consider trading Ketel Marte. They've already been interested in trading guys like Zach Gallen away. I understand Marte's deal is amazing, and that's why, like, at 31 years of age, like, the guy's not 26 or 27. I genuinely want to know what it would cost. Because
I can tell you. It would cost you Jason Dominguez, Spencer Jones, Lombard Jr. It would take you literally everybody.
Yeah, and I'm just curious if they could actually get it done, because I think if you had him with Judge, I mean, he's getting better and better and better and better, and he's probably the best value in the MLB. And it's just Arizona, I don't know where they are. Are they about to, like, you tell me? I mean, you live in Arizona. Are they what's the grumblings there? Are they going to be, sellers? Are they giving up? Like, they were just in the World Series 2 years ago, but it just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like they feel confident about where they are. They're kind of in like this purgatory.
Why would they? Here's the thing. Here's how you know the Diamondbacks shouldn't. And here's the thing. The Diamondbacks literally just went to a World Series, as you alluded to. Every single person that saw the Juan Soto deal, you know what they said? Why would you go to the National League? You have to go play the Dodgers. Well, how do you think the teams in division think? What are you thinking when you look at the Dodgers, who just threw a $600 million offer at Juan Soto, which goes to show you they're still spending. Okay.
Yeah.
They're still trying to bring back Teoscar Hernandez. I guess they're the odds-on favorite to bring him back. I expect him to go back to the Dodgers. It's insane the level of aggressiveness that this organization's shown, and also development. They have an ability to get more out of less, as well as spending ridiculous money. So if you're a Diamondbacks fan or an executive, why would you feel like we really need to hang on to this star? Or do we need to sort of wait out the storm here? Because Ohtani is still in his prime. Okay. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, they're still in their prime. Teoscar Hernandez will be in his prime. All of these players, and people, they're assuming that Sasaki is going now to the Dodgers. Well, if that happens, you're talking about a 23, 24-year-old player getting his feet wet for an organization that, frankly, is going to have your number for the next 5 to 6 years. So if it comes down to it, what does this mean? Ketel Marte, how valuable is that player to them in the short term? I don't know if any player is going to be valuable to really any organization within that division. So I don't know. I'm not going to speak for the Diamondbacks. If it was me, I would probably say a player this good, essentially take your pick around baseball. Send me your best guys, put them all in a package, and then we'll decide if that is enough for this player. And I don't know if the Yankees, if it's a good idea, obviously, to go public and say, hey, we'll give you everything for this guy. But these are the type of conversations that need to happen behind closed doors, and then you surprise everybody with a big trade.
Yeah. And I mean, Randy did say they really like him and they've tried in the past. So you never know. I just think that would be the perfect pivot. But I see a lot of Brandon Lau. And not to be mistaken with, I think they're all a family. There's 3 Laus in this league. I don't get the Brandon Lau love. I don't. Nathaniel, I understand, but I just don't. You want to trade prospects to your rival to get kind of what is a mid player. I mean, 21 homers, 244, 231, 221. Seems
like that Kapler signing. You remember that Kapler trade that they kept throwing around? Doesn't really make sense. By the way, we have a super chat here from New York Sports Fan 12. Appreciate the 2. Thank you very much. Says not signing Harper now looks worse. Now with what happened with Soto. Yeah. Right.
Well, Corey Seager looks even worse.
Corey Seager looks terrible. So, okay, I want to get to really the point here of what he's saying with Harper. I want to really unfold this because of how true this statement is. When you talk about Yankees and what it means to be a Yankee, you can't force people to care about something that you care about. I know that fans of other fan bases will say, oh, everybody, all those Yankees fans, they just think the world revolves around the Yankees. The world revolves around Monument Park. And for some Yankees fans, that's true. For some of them, they just think that every player wants to play for this organization. And that is not true. There are a lot of people who hate this team. They do. And that includes players. But it is part of the job as general manager of the Yankees. It is part of Brian Cashman's job to do the necessary research of which players, based on what they did as kids. Obviously, you saw with Garrett Cole, grew up a Yankees fan. When you're deciding who to go after, of course, how good is this player should be the first thing on your mind, but also what type of fit is this with our organization? Does he want to be here? Juan Soto showed us nothing that he wanted to be here before we made this trade. So that is part of why this statement is so true. Bryce Harper, for those of you who don't know, I played club baseball with Bryce Harper, okay? Bryce Harper played for a team here in Arizona, and he used to fly from Las Vegas to here to play with the McDowell Mountain Yankees. He wore the number 34 because he knew 3 + 4 is Mickey Mantle's 7. If you're trying to decide which great player is it that I want to invest 12 to 13 years into and say, oh yeah, I know for a fact that guy wants to be in this locker room, there you have it. Bryce Harper can't say, oh, he just wanted to be Yankee. He would have done anything to do it. But if you made the money right, he was coming to New York, and they fumbled it horrifically. And we're going to be searching. We are going to be searching for the replacement of Bryce Harper. And I can't say it's a ghost because he's not Ted Williams. He's a great player, but we made a huge mistake. That was a huge error in judgment as far as I'm concerned. And we might as well just wear it on the chin because it is what it is.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it already happened. There's not really anything you could do. I mean, I remember at the time, I was like, how do you not get Bryce Harper and just play him at first? I mean, they literally wouldn't get him because they had Brett Gardner. And I love Brett Gardner, but come on now. So,
they made that seem really hard. Harper couldn't play first base. It was outlandish. And that didn't work. That was off.
Yeah, it's just silly. It really is. Yeah, I think as far as trade options, random guys like Brandon Lau, I'm not interested in, right? I understand Nathaniel Lau. I think there are better options, but I don't hate it. I really like Yandy Diaz, and I'm not going to sit here and act like he's the best fielder ever because he's not even close. But, you know, I understand, you know, with the bat, it might be worth it. There are people saying Alec Burleson. I just don't, I don't see the Cardinals giving him up. I don't see why they would. They don't really have a lot going for them. He's a 26-year-old player that is coming off his best year. I guess maybe you sell high, the outfielder, but, you know, I don't really understand. Who was the player
in Minnesota that you were really interested in at third base?
I was interested in
it was Lewis.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So, okay. So here's the deal on that. I just feel, and I don't know why, but I had just had this feeling for a long time. Not a long time. I mean, the guys haven't been around that long. But for, you know, a couple of years now, I just feel like Royce Lewis is going to get traded to the Yankees for Anthony Volpe, straight up. I think it's going to be like the Soriano A-Rod deal. Very similar. I don't
How
think
long down in the future? Because obviously Lewis is dealing with injuries. That's the issue with this player. And by the way, if Lewis is healthy, he's a way better player. It's not even close. Okay. So
Lewis could absolutely, I mean, and you have to understand, he only had 325 plate appearances this year. He had 16 home runs. This guy was hitting home runs like crazy. He gets hurt a lot. That's the problem. If he ever figures that out and he's able to stay healthy, he is going to be an absolute, like, dynamic player. I mean, you know, he had 15 home runs the year prior with only 239 plate appearances, right? 920 OPS. I think Royce Lewis could absolutely rake at Yankee Stadium. I think he's got, and I understand it's early and he can't stay healthy, but if he ever gets a chance to have a full healthy season at age 25, if he gets a chance, I think he can hit 40-plus home runs. I think he's got crazy pop.
Yeah, well, yeah, as our chat alluded to, if Byron Buxton could turn the injury slider off, he'd probably be at the All-Star game. Every summer, he'd be right there at the All-Star game. And unfortunately, being able to be available is a skill. Okay, there are certain players you just turn on a game in middle of August. You know, where the hell is Lewis? Oh, he strained his back, and this is the situation. We're expecting him to be back in 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, great. And then 2-3 weeks come by. Now suddenly he rakes, and he's gone 2 or 3 days later. You need to be available. That's the first mission of this. And obviously, my dad having played in the league, there were a lot of times where he wasn't healthy, and he still played. Now, obviously, that's changing as the years go on. Players are playing injured much less today than they were in years past. But, yeah, I like the idea of him being a Yankee, but I have to imagine, like, what reason would they have to get rid of this player? Because, I mean, when he's on the field, that dude, he's money. That he's like an MVP candidate, in my opinion, when he's on the field, and it just hasn't happened yet. But to be fair to him, Steph Curry was going down with injuries left and right at the beginning of his career. He put on some ankle bracelets, and all of a sudden, he was good.
By the way, very interesting stuff I just found. Courtesy of Baseball Savant. Outs above average. It's a cumulative effect of all individual plays a fielder has been credited or debited with, depending making it a range-based metric of fielding skill that accounts for number of plays made and the difficulty of them. For example, a fielder who catches 25% out probability play gets a plus 0.75. One who fails to make the play gets a minus 0.25. So this basically tells you, as far as like range, first baseman, listen to this top five. Carlos Santana, who the Yankees like, by the way, number 1 in the league at first base. He prevented 11 runs this past year.
Well, how old is he? Is he 36?
Let me check. And I don't even know why they had me click that. Carlos Santana.
He has to be.
Because I've been seeing that name pop up a bit, and I'm like, Carlos
What's
Santana.
funny is I just Googled it and it pulled up 77-year-old Carlos Santana with a guitar in his hand.
Might as well be.
What the hell happened to Carlos?
His bat's gone. Well, no, he still hits. He hit 23 homers. Dude. The problem is he's 38 years old. That's a problem.
Oh,
but also
no way.
A 93rd% fielding run value. Where the hell did this come from? I didn't even realize he was that good of a fielder. Anyway, 14 OAA, right? Outs above average. So he's first in the league. Second in the league is Christian Walker with 13. Third is Bryce Harper, who we were just talking about.
Oh my gosh, Brian Cashman.
Fourth is Nathaniel Lau with 7. And fifth is Matt Olson with 4. So here's what I'm going to say. Do you want to know where the Yankees are? Anthony Rizzo is -3. Yandy Diaz is -3. So it would basically be like having Anthony Rizzo out there, but I'm getting production at the plate.
So Rizzo, but good instead. I'm just unfolding what you said.
I mean, Pete Alonso -9, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. -9, Luis Arias when he's at first base has a -6, and
but he also hits 340. So
well, he's qualified though, which is kind of surprising. So, you'll love this one. Ty France -12.
And he had like one of his worst years offensively of his career last year.
Yeah, so like,
oh boy,
he had an issue with like getting like released or whatever, but like, it wasn't good on either side. I felt bad for him. Either way, second base. Remember the other day you were telling me about Jimenez, that guy that got traded, and I was like,
how good he was. Does he lead the league? He has to.
21.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we saw some plays at Yankee Stadium, dude. He is unbelievable defensively.
Marcus Simeon, 19.
Wow.
Otto Lopez, who I've never heard of before in my life.
See, you're not hiding at second base. There's no such thing as hiding. If you put a player at second base and they go plus 15 in this category, put them at second base, man. How big of where's Gleyber Torres on this list?
Do you want to know where Nico Horner is first?
I'm going to say he's a +3.
10.
It's very good.
He's fourth in the league.
So let's see what this swing would be. We're talking about a player who is a +10 on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Where's
Prevented
Gleyber Torres?
7 runs. Yeah.
Gleyber Torres prevented 7 runs.
No. Nico Horner. So now I'm going to look at Gleyber Torres.
Yes.
So he prevented -3 runs, and he was a -4. Arias is a -7, so he would be awful. Altuve is a -9. He's second to last in the league. Jorge Polanco is a -10. At that point, bro's not even playing second. He's just sitting there texting.
Yeah, and if you're a Hall of Fame offensive player, you can get away with it. Be a bad
Gavin
because
Lux,
apparently my dad's the worst defensive player of all time according to the analytics, but he also raked. So
I don't even buy that. But anyway, Gavin Lux, who the Dodgers, we found out later on, tried to package. I love how they use these like random players and like, this giant package that we're giving you for Devin Williams. They must have laughed in their face. Gavin Lux is a -2.
Okay, so -2 just means you're as league average as it gets, right?
Brandon Lau is 0. So like why? Like I understand that's an upgrade from Gleyber, but I'm downgrading because he doesn't hit anywhere near the level of Gleyber. So
yeah, you have to consider the bat.
Absolutely. And Jonathan India, who gets a lot of shit for his fielding, was a +1. So with that bat, you know what I mean? Like now,
hey, this is fair.
What's that?
So Joe says Gary Sheffield wasn't paid to dive for a ball. That's actually exactly. I'm pretty sure my dad said this at one point. He's like, I'm not paid to make plays.
I would still like to see a fair, like an actual fair analysis, because nowadays we have all these analytics and they'll probably never go back and try it all out. But I'm sure it's not as bad because it's all hearsay. You know, when people talk about these great defenders, it's like, what do you normally hear? It's basically a beat writer for 20 years that said, yeah, he just made play after play. And it's like, well, he might not have. I mean, like, I didn't realize that Jonathan India was a positive fielder. That's not what I've been told.
No, we were actually told that India was essentially, well, this is what they told us. They said getting India is exactly what you get from Gleyber Torres. It's going to be a bunch of errors, a terrible second baseman. It's exactly this is what they said. And then what do you think of the offensive upgrade? More speed than Gleyber, right? Not as much pop, probably not as good of a bat. So that's what you're getting. And then people said, oh, well, hold on, we don't want India. They didn't want India now because of what they were saying with the glove. But once you kind of look at these numbers, this isn't the holy grail, but I guess what it kind of goes to show you is that the gist of it, if you're a bad fielder or even league average, you need to provide something. You can be a terrible fielder, but I better rush to my seat when you come up to the plate. Gleyber Torres was atrocious last year defensively. I don't care what anybody says. He was awful to watch. Analytically, with my eyes, every which way. But in the second half of the season, his on base was over 400. He delivered. So that is what it is. He's obviously not back because the Yankees want to get better fundamentally, and that's perfectly fine. But you need to be great at something. Yandy Diaz, if we ended up going with him, he's a player. He's not going to do anything for us, as you would put it, Jake. Corner defensive spots. He's not going to do a damn thing for us, but he's going to rake. We know that for certain. This is why Cody Bellinger, Christian Walker, you're hearing some of these names. Why? Because they might not be superstars that you want to pay $25 million, but we're not going to say, oh man, who are we going to put at first base that can field a ground ball today? Both of those players are solutions defensively who can both happen. They both happen to hit. So I think they're both good pickups for the Yankees. I'm hoping it's one of those two players. I really do.
Donovan's 9th, by the way, from St. Louis. I actually like Donovan. I think he's a little underrated. I mean, you wouldn't even recognize him if he came to the Yankees because he's got that whole caveman thing going. But, I mean, this is a 280 hitter for his career. You know,
wait, who?
Brendan Donovan.
Oh, yeah.
9th in second base defense. Can also play left field. So, and he's got an 89th percentile range. K rate is 97th percentile. Whiff rate is 94th. Squared up percentage is 98%. Expected batting average is 88th percentile. He's a good player. And they've liked him. They've tried to go out and get him. So, I don't know. Donovan could be interesting.
Oh, by the way, I was getting a lot of questions today about Max Fried. We signed him 5 days ago. People are saying, oh, he's probably on vacation. But what's so interesting about that, dude, I could literally be in Milan. If somebody signed me to a $218 million deal, I'm flying Delta first class.
Oh, yeah.
Straight back to the United States.
Gary, I win.
Well, who'd you find?
Jazz Chisholm is 4th for third base.
Well,
an AOAA.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Yankees fans in general would have told you it didn't look very good. Which I can't blame them because you do want somebody who's been there, done that.
Well,
at Yankee Stadium, for a Yankee, you want them to have been comfortable as we go into October. Well, this is a good idea,
though.
I don't know.
This explains the picture. So while he's in that spot, 4th in the league, behind only Arenado, Chapman, and Joey Ortiz, his success rate is middle of the pack. And that tells me that he's only going to get better. Like, if he's already there.
That's true.
Yep. That's why that was my justification. I mean, he's prevented 6 runs. And that is 4th in the league. Ryan McMahon is behind him, who is another guy. Ryan McMahon, did he get signed? That was a guy. Remember, we heard that the Yankees
No,
could be interested in
still
him.
on their team. By the way, I need to address this whole this perspective right here, the physical tools. Okay, so Drew Thorpe here with the comment says Chisholm, his arm bails him out a lot. Let me say this. This comment, it's a good comment because it's true.
It is.
But you also have to remember, guys, your physical ability is part of who you are. It's the same exact thing as when I was watching I'm literally watching a basketball game with my dad, and I'm watching Wemby dunk. And he goes, man, if he just wasn't 7'6", that wouldn't happen. I go, well, he is. So what are we talking about here? That's the way that this works. If you're a 7-foot tall guy, it's going to be easier for you to dunk. Jazz Chisholm at third base, yes, he can make some mental mistakes or physical errors at third base and bail himself out with his arm. Well, part of that arm is what makes him, to Jake's point, a decent risk to take. You can put him over there and maybe he does get better with the glove. And by the way, guys, he was really good at third base with his glove. If that improves at all,
better
you're
than
looking
Bregman.
at a dynamic third baseman at a incredibly important position. So yeah, I'm not against leaving him at third base, but if there's an option for the Yankees to get better over there, and we essentially by way of that deal, we have to move Jazz Chisholm to second, I'm cool with that as well.
How about this? I love this stat. Success rate added. Jazz Chisholm led all third basemen in the league with 5% expected estimated success rate. So he had a 67%, and the expected was 62% based on the analysis and the data. And that is the best. Chapman is second with 3%. Joey Ortiz, Nolan Arenado, Alex Bregman are all tied with 2%. Jazz, like I said, it's not far off. Jazz is literally 3 OAAs outs above average, below the leader. And I said he can be the best third baseman in the league, and I believe that. So, yeah, I wanted to bring that up. And then last we were going to do left field, right, to see who was your guy. Dalton Varsho is number 1. He has 10. Stephen Kwan is 4. Taylor Ward is in 7th.
I think Stephen Kwan would actually, of all the players in Major League Baseball, I think Stephen Kwan, for whatever reason, I would love him to be in pinstripes. Never going to happen.
I agree.
More than likely. I just love watching him play. He's just awful to play against. Good at everything.
My dad is throwing a fit right now that you're saying that, because the other day, you know those AI channels?
Yes.
My poor dad, he texts me, he sends me this AI channel and said Stephen Kwan to the Yankees. He's like, when the hell did this happen?
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, it's an AI channel. He's like, please tell me it's not an AI channel. I was like, it's an AI channel. And he's like, oh man, can you imagine Stephen Kwan and the freaking Bronx? He's awesome. The dude was literally hitting 400 at one point. By the way, Brendan Donovan is top 10 defense in left field and at second base. So I'm curious where Judge is, by the way. Oh, not good.
I didn't expect it to be. You put him in center field. He's 6'7". I mean, how good defensively did people think he would be?
He runs prevented is -5.
Okay.
He is second to last.
So to Randy's point, he'll be in right field. Much easier position. It's the reason we put Juan Soto out there. Hardly any ground to cover. Any ball off the wall is now held to a single. We love having that. But most importantly, Jason Dominguez defensively has to be better than a -5. If he can't do that in center field and he's not raking, I know right off rip, if you can't field, you can't hit for average, and you're not hitting for pop, you shouldn't be on the team. So we'll know within a year or two, hey, Jason Dominguez, yeah, you're now 23, 24, you're not hitting and you're not fielding. Well, then you move on. But as far as I'm concerned, the Yankees have plenty reasons to think they're going to be way better defensively in 2025. So I really want people to hesitate when you think, oh, we just lost Juan Soto, so we're just going to stink. No, the Yankees have so many ways to get better. They've already gotten a lot better by bringing in Max Fried and having someone who we now can trust at closer. Obviously, Luke Weaver, somebody that we would have felt comfortable with. But I did mention on X that Weaver doesn't have pedigree. Love that word. He doesn't have anything long-term to suggest that this is something that will continue. It very well could. There's potential for it. But do I want to hang my hat on Luke Weaver as my closer in 2025? No. I would much prefer to bring somebody in who's sure of themselves. So when I go into October again next year and we're in a close game in the 9th, we're in a close game in the 10th, and I need 4 outs, I'm looking at Devin Williams. It's a pretty good answer. So I think Brian Cashman's done a pretty decent job so far, but the most important thing is what he does next. And hopefully, they keep telling us we're close on Bellinger, we're close on Walker. We're all just guessing at this point.
Yeah. You know what's really funny? You always compare Anthony Volpe to Dansby Swanson.
Yep.
Dansby Swanson is number 1 in defense for shortstop, 18 outs above average. Anthony Volpe is a 14, so he's in 6th place. Swanson is in 1st. Lindor is in 2nd. Bobby Witt Jr. is in 3rd. Ellie De La Cruz is in 4th. Ezekiel Tovar is 5th. Volpe is 6th. Rojas from the Dodgers is 7th. Corey Seager is 9th. Carlos Correa is 10th. Oh, God, the Rocchio guy. He's 11th. Remember Rocchio?
When you're 9th like Seager and then you hit, that's not bad.
Well, I mean, when you're freaking, you're talking about Francisco Lindor, who was an MVP runner-up, and he's 16. And now you get to see why. You're like, okay, he's a special player.
Yep.
So, yeah. Trace Sweeney is 19th. Former Yankee. Remember that?
The list is long of all our prospects that just...
It is. Yeah, well, anyway, it's interesting. I mean, they got all these, By the way, to answer your question, Jimenez literally leads all of baseball. He's the best fielder in the history of the world. 21 outs over expected. That's crazy. But yeah, so it is a reminder here that, I mean, we went over some of these guys, and yeah, I think first base, the Yankees have a chance to astronomically improve first base, because even if you get Yandy Diaz, he's the same as Rizzo defensively, according to this metric. And actually his success rate is higher. But according to this metric, they're the same, -3 outs above expected, but at the same time, or outs above average, but at the same time, you're getting Yandy Diaz's bat, right? So that's huge. And you got Christian Walker, Carlos Santana, and Nathaniel Lau in the top 5. All 3 of them, three of the 5, top 5, first basemen, sounds like they're available. So Lau would be for trade. Santana and Walker would be to sign. So we're going to see what ends up happening. But I don't think they're wrong if they go with any of those guys, whether that's Yandy Diaz via trade or Lau, or going with Santana or Walker. I mean, all those guys are going to be able to help this team. So, that's what I would say about that. But we appreciate you guys. Do you have any final thoughts, Gary, before we move on to the movie portion of this?
No, the last thing. So I agreed with you on all of it except for the Santana. I can't see a 38-year-old at first base.
Don't want Santana, but I cannot see.
If I see Santana, I'm going to be pissed. I'm just telling you now.
I could see him doing it.
Yeah, I will be upset, and I will show how upset I am on this podcast. It's not it. Even if it's a 1-year deal, and I know it would be, but
yeah,
to say, okay, well, Rizzo, obviously you picked your spots. Obviously you had some value with this team, right? You had some key injuries that didn't help things, but we're going to try and upgrade over there at first base. And that answer ends up being Santana, a 38-year-old first baseman. I cannot stress to you enough how upset I would be. I think it would be malpractice to think that we had any opportunity to go to a World Series with Santana standing at first base. I think you need to be good everywhere. Not great, but you need to be comparable at all positions and to look at first base, a key position in the field, and see a player like that, who obviously he's not a bad player. It's his age. The age does not work. So yeah, that's my only final comment.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to be overlapping movies because I now can no longer remember if I've said one before or not. But there is a rumor out there. Do you see the Spider-Man mask in the background? There's a rumor, it's getting louder and louder and louder, that Sony is going to sell Spider-Man to Disney and stay out of the MCU's way. So put in Spider-Man if you stuck around for this point. I probably already said that before, but I've already lost track. We've done so many movies.
Oh, actually, by the way, guys, if you're going to put Spider-Man in the chat, wait until the video. Yep, right. The video is going to be uploaded, like essentially right after we go live. Go into the actual video itself, because then it's a clean slate. All the live chats they're not actually comments on the video. So put Spider-Man in the video itself.
Which I think is dumb, but
it is dumb. But yeah, just letting you guys know.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you. Really big thank you to Randy Miller for coming on the show. A lot of fun talking with him. And we'll keep you guys posted. Honestly, if anything happens, you guys will be the first ones to know. But as of right now, does not look like anything has happened. Real quick check here to make sure that we're not missing anything. No breaking news, nothing?
Nope.
Okay, so we are on Bellinger watch, whatever that means. And yeah, we'll wait until we get a formal announcement for Max Fried, but that's it. We appreciate you guys so very much. Thank you all for the super chats. Thank you all for the likes. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and be sure to subscribe and tell your friends if they're looking for a podcast that's relatively new, that is going to break down everything with everything. Yankees baseball. Be sure to tell them to tune in to Yankees Unloaded.
And like this video.